Are you fascinated by the paranormal and want to hear about encounters that have happened to real-life people in real-life places? Do you need a drink to calm those nerves after hearing some scary stories?
You're listening to Booze and Bourbon.
Well, we invite you to grab a drink, whether it's a coffee or something with a little bit more spirit in it. Grab a blanket, snuggle in, because I'm Kim and that's Jen, and we're Booze and Bourbon.
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting and raunchy episode from Booze and Bourbon. Maybe not raunchy. Sometimes I would like it to be raunchy, but we're just going to keep it cool today.
I appreciate you refraining. I mean, I love the real raw Jenny T, but occasionally for some listeners, I think we need to tone it down.
Just dial it down a little bit, you know?
Jen, how are you?
Well, I'm just dandy, you know? Just dandy over here. I wish Nova Scotia's weather would decide what it wanted to do, but I mean, we're used to it now that it can never make up its mind. So, not sure if you want to tan or if you want to put on a fall coat or perhaps a winter jacket. It's just all over the map.
Yeah, and to accessorize, on the weekend, we should have had like beer cozies in hand because it was so nice and warm that your drink instantly would warm up.
Mm-hmm.
And then today, the accessory of choice would be the snow shovel.
Yes, and that's where it gets confusing because yesterday was beautiful and then today it's snowing, so...
Well, Jen, we've got a crazy episode today because it's about something that isn't really a typical haunting. So it's not a house. It's not land. It's an object. Actually, two objects.
Yes.
And they're both chairs.
Mm-hmm. Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew? So I don't know if anybody's heard of the infamous Busby chair, but that's one of the chairs we're talking about. And then another one is called the Chair of Death. And it's in an old-timey time home. That's a big old mansion. And these chairs like to kill people. So it's going to be an interesting episode for sure. And I don't know about you, but I felt it very necessary to choose two bourbons today.
Well, actually, now that you mention it, I don't know if this counts, but I started out with some bourbon cream in my coffee. And then I... moved on to a little Four Roses. So
beautiful. I was looking at the Four Roses bottle in the cabinet and I was like, do I? Don't I? There's not a whole lot left. So
it's getting down there.
It is. I chose a really crappy one. Santa, who apparently doesn't know bourbon.
No.
He chose Winchester for me and a little Mickey. So I'm having Winchester bourbon, which is made by TerraPure. And it's only been aged for 6 months, so you know what that's like. Whew. And I also have a really nice one, which is Maker's Mark Cask Strength.
Ooh,
so
yes.
I'm starting off with the Winchester and then going to finish it up with the Maker's Mark. And we don't have any new bourbon because one, it's quarantine, and two, every time I drive by the liquor store, because the liquor store is open, there's always a big lineup. And I'm like, I am not standing in a lineup because one, I'm going to look like an alcoholic. And two, they say that COVID spreads by aerosols and it's windy out there. So
it's a good point. I did actually stand in a few lineups, I won't lie. And I just also felt the same, like people were judging me, perhaps looking at me like, wow, she's really in need over there, just freezing. I was kind of jumping up and down to keep warm and like kind of skipping on the spot. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You are a trooper. I'm proud of you.
But you know, because you said Winchester, it kind of reminds me with something that relates to our topic today, because that movie based on, well, Winchester, the family and the home and the collection of rifles and whatnot, that would be a lot of haunted objects as well.
You're
home
right.
And guns included.
You are very right. And, you know, good old Sarah Winchester, we did an episode about her. We know how she rolled with all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, since I've been sipping on a little bit of bourbon, I've got these burning questions, and it all has to do with the game. Do you like the game Would You Rather?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I want to play.
And does that mean you're going first?
I can.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Would you rather own a famous haunted chair
Yes.
and, do the right thing with it and like keep it in storage and not just have it out for like random people to sit on? Or would you like to only have 2 smells you could smell for the rest of your life? And those 2 smells are garden dirt and chlorine.
Ugh. I mean, I'm not one for, I don't mind the garden dirt when I'm gardening, but I don't think I want to smell it all the time. Chlorine gives me flashbacks of traumatizing events at the local pool here. So...
Wait, traumatizing.
Well, like the little kids that would pee in the pool and like just some people that probably shouldn't be wearing things in the pool that they're wearing. And
so basically the typical run-of-the-mill at an all-inclusive resort.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically. Okay. So I think I'd go with the chair. I like chairs, but I, could manage to keep it safe and protected away from my 4-legged friend who would probably want to sit on it all day and then would end up being even more crazy than he is. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Good one.
All right. I'm just going to take it to a different level on the same level, but just a little offside.
Okay.
So
I didn't expect anything less from you.
Would you rather have all of the toilets in your home be haunted because they came from a home with 4 different ghosts and perhaps a poltergeist?
Oh.
But both toilets were, fancy ones, antique ones, if you will. So you guys liked them, you put them in your home. Or would you rather have a haunted couch that is haunted by, not necessarily but by a witch. We'll just say a witch. So either a couch that you probably use often to watch TV and whatnot, or your toilets, which could be brief, because you only go to the bathroom so many times and you're only there for a couple minutes. So
it would be the worst having haunted toilets when you have to get up at like 3 a.m. and go pee. That would be the worst.
That's true.
But then having a haunted sofa, yeah, you're right. You'd spend more time there. I feel like I could really write a good story about having the world's first haunted toilets. So I'm going to forego my scared poopy pants and create some stories with it. To just write some stories with it.
Okay.
Haunted thrones it is.
Got it. Perfect.
Well, now that we've started talking about some really weird stuff, we're going to get into today's main topic right after the break, which is haunted chairs. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, guys. I had a thought there on the break, and when we were talking about haunted toilets, it got me thinking how weird that would be if, you're just sitting there scrolling through Instagram or whatever it is that you do, and you hear this like ghostly voice talking back to you as you're just, trying to take a minute and do what you need to do, and you have a voice like maybe not even saying anything nice to you. It could be completely offside as well, or it could be polite, but I just feel like that'd be really entertaining. I mean, it could get annoying after a while when you just want some peace and quiet and you just go in there, thinking that you're just going to get a little silence, and then your ghost toilet starts talking to you while you're trying to have a moment. So
I think that would be hilarious. I kind of got the visual of like you scrolling through Instagram and then creeping somebody's profile on Instagram and the ghost being like, do you have a problem?
You know what? I think it inspired me to make a video. I'm going to have to make a video about it.
Please do.
Yes.
Please do. And send it to me tonight.
Don't worry, everyone. I will, fuzz out the things that you don't need to see, but I will make a toilet video.
Fantastic. Cannot wait. Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
So many of us have not just Jen's lovely memories ingrained in our minds, but the ones where our grandfather, cool uncle, or dad is rocking away in his favorite chair. Maybe he's catching some Z's. Maybe he's passively aggressively farting up a storm in it after having that super hearty meal. Or maybe he's just socializing with family, toking away on a cigarette. Whatever he's doing in it, that's his chair and no one else is allowed in it. Let's face it, it was probably hideous, overstuffed, and not so stylish. It's safe to say, unless your male family member elder was a serial killer or offensively part of a dark cult, the chances of his favorite chair being haunted are slim. Haunted chair? How can there be such a thing? Aren't old houses with lifetimes of memories the very things that are haunted? Also haunted land, which we've known about for a while now, because that's a thing too. But a chair, that's interesting. So when we stumbled across this first story of a haunted chair and how many hits came up on the internet, it was kind of mind-blowing. This godforsaken piece of furniture in all of its oak glory is called the Busby's Stoop chair, or the dead man's chair. It apparently is cursed by the murderer of Thomas Busby. The apparent haunting happened before his execution by hanging in 1702 in North Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. A ridiculous number of sudden deaths were linked to this chair, and its current owner didn't want anyone else to sit on it, so he donated it to the Thirsk Museum. This chair has caused so much controversy that there was more recently a Change.org petition asking the UK Parliament to burn the chair in a bonfire and to have its murderous previous owner cremated so that the curse that goes along with this chair is lifted forever. The opening description on the website states the following. Busby's Stoop chair, or the dead man's chair, is an allegedly haunted oak chair that was cursed by the murderer Thomas Busby before his execution by hanging in 1702. The chair has reportedly killed 6 people over the years by the curse. I want you to burn it in a bonfire because of its evil. It needs to be destroyed. It is currently on display at the Thirsk Museum, and I want it to be removed and burned in the bonfire so that the ghost can go free from haunting people. Also, the body of Thomas Busby, who cursed the object, must be dug up and cremated as well so that the curse will go away. Interesting.
Yes. All right. So now that you know a little about the chair that supposedly kills people, let's get into the grit of the story. In 1702, an unsavory character by the name of Thomas Busby was convicted for the murder of his father-in-law. The crime took place after an argument between Daniel and Busby over Daniel's daughter. As the story goes, Busby's mood darkened that evening when he saw Daniel sitting in his favorite chair. Busby forcibly removed him from the chair and threw him out. That night, Busby, still seething, grabbed a hammer, stormed over to Daniel's, and bludgeoned him to death. Busby then tried to hide the body in the woods. Concern over Daniel's sudden disappearance led to a local search of the area. On finding the body, Busby was arrested at his inn and charged with murder. Busby was then sentenced to death. His punishment was to be hanged, his body dipped in tar and his remains displayed on a stoop, a post attached to a gibbet in full view of an inn. The inn was later renamed the Busby Stoop Inn. It is here that the accounts of events start to vary. One version tells how Busby was granted his last wish, which was to have a final drink at his own inn and sit in his favorite chair. On leaving the inn to make his final journey to the execution site, Busby cursed the chair, declaring that death would come shortly to anyone who sat in it. Another version tells how Busby drunkenly shouted out the curse while he was being taken to the gibbet to be hanged. Busby was determined that even from beyond the grave, he would never allow anyone to sit in his beloved chair. It remained in the pub for centuries, and of course, as drunk people do, people are dared to sit in it to see if the legend of the curse was real.
The first death to be associated with the chair is that of a chimney sweep who sat in the chair while having a drink with a friend one evening in 1894. This sweep never made it home that night. Too drunk to make it back to his own bed, he laid down in the road to sleep. The next morning, his body was found hanging from the stoop next to the gibbet. His death was ruled as a suicide, but in 1914, the friend with whom the chimney sweep had spent his last hours admitted on his deathbed to having robbed and murdered his friend. Yikes. So during the Second World War, the pub became a popular drinking spot with airmen. I'm just going to say coax. They would coax each other to sit in the chair. Those that took up the challenge never returned from their missions. In 1968, 2 airmen were overheard daring each other to sit in the chair. They both did. Returning to the airfield, their car left the road and crashed into a tree. They both died on the way to the hospital. Throughout the 1970s, the chair seemed to claim a number of victims, including a cleaning lady who was diagnosed with a brain tumor after bumping into the chair. A number of cyclists and motorcyclists who suffered fatal road accidents, a hitchhiker who was run over after having spent 2 nights at the pub, and a local man who died of a heart attack shortly after sitting in the cursed chair. A group of builders having a drink at the pub coaxed the youngest into sitting at the chair. Back at the site, the man fell through the roof of the building and landed on the concrete ground below. This death proved to be a final straw for the pub owner, and he banished the chair to the cellar. Eventually, the pub owner moved it into the basement, hoping that nobody would sit in it. However, as bad luck would have it, one day a delivery man was in the basement and sat in it. Like, who just sits in a random chair, though?
I don't know.
Anyway, so an hour later, he crashed his truck and he died. And after that death, the landlord asked the local museum to take it. To ensure nobody sat in it again, they hung the chair 5 feet from the ground. You should.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Many people believe the deaths were just an unlucky coincidence. Another explanation could be simply that the majority of those brave enough to defy the curse were just risk takers, prepared to push their luck, and were simply unlucky. Although people are now safe from sitting in the chair, mostly because it's hanging from the wall and no longer on the sitting level, news stories still come out about the chair's power. One local was told about a driver who had picked up an airman. The airman asked to go to the bathroom, so they stopped at the Busby Stoop Inn. While waiting, the driver sat in the chair. When the airman didn't return, the driver left without him. The angered airman had to make his own way back to the base. When he got back, the airman grabbed a building brick and smashed the head of the driver, killing him.
Lovely.
That's aggressive.
So, I do want to know, though, I've been thinking about this. Who got the short end of the stick when it came to hanging the chair up on the wall? Like, do you have to hang it with tongs, or do you have to wear like super thick gloves? How does that work?
Yeah, like, is the chair like COVID? Like, can you not touch it at all? Or like, you maybe like there's, I don't know, you'd have to put some ropes around it and hope that you don't touch it and just, I don't know.
Perhaps. So it seemed that since the museum had made the chair nearly impossible to sit in it, that its killing days were over. The museum still has the chair on display today, and we highly recommend you don't go try it out because, first of all, you'd have to take it off the wall, and second of all, the curse seems non-existent until some time has passed. So it's kind of like COVID, I guess. And it's been said that for some time prior to the death, the time period differs with each case, the person who sat in the chair starts having haunting experiences, including extreme itching, paranoia, hearing things, confusion, items being moved around, and written warnings on mirrors or walls about their imminent death. Busby's spirit was believed to have haunted his old pub as well as the area where he was hanged, but it's his chair, which is the focus of his curse, which became linked to his revengeful spirit. According to Wikipedia, the number of deaths associated with this chair was 6, but according to these local legendary stories, this innocent-looking chair's number of victims is at over 60.
Damn.
60.
I would say that it's time to just get rid of the chair, really, at that point. Like, I'm not really sure what's holding you guys back, but...
Right.
So now we move along to another haunted chair. This one doesn't share the same resemblance as Busby's chair in the least, but it does share a sinister background and a similar nickname. The Chair of Death. Let's talk about the home in which this chair resides. The Balleroy Mansion, built in 1911, is reported to be, of course this is cliche, one of the most haunted homes in America. Phenomenon includes several apparitions, disembodied voices, ectoplasm that materializes, cold spots, a cursed chair, and much more. Let's hone in on the mansion's history a bit and on the cursed chair story for today. History of Balleroy. Balleroy is a historic 30-room mansion in the elite Chestnut Hill suburb of Philadelphia. It is the ancestral home of 76-year-old George Mead Easby, known to his friends as Mead, who happens to be a millionaire philanthropist and fine art collector. Mead claims that every room in the home tells an important story in American history. In the Blue Room, there is the sterling silver that was used at the celebratory dinner attended by the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and a very important chair, it seems. The cannonball that felled his great-grandfather, General George Meade, at the Battle of Gettysburg, has a place of honor in the Red Room. It's been said that in every room there are ghosts. For the past 70 years, nearly everyone who has come to the Balleroy has been haunted by the past. Meade knew this place was special from the moment he arrived. He vividly remembers the day his family moved in. Meade was 6. His younger brother, Stephen, was 5. The boys were immediately drawn to a splendid fountain in the courtyard. They leaned over the edge, and Meade saw his own reflection in the clear water. He turned to look at Stephen's reflection, but instead of the image of his younger brother, Meade saw a skeleton. It shook me up quite a bit, he recalls today. We saw a skeleton where his image should have been, and shortly after that, Stephen died.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
So you think that the place was special because of that?
Yeah, exactly. Wouldn't say that's special, but yeah.
No. All right. So the chair in question is in the mansion's Blue Room. It was apparently manufactured by a warlock and once owned by Napoleon. At least 4 deaths have been blamed on a cursed 200-year-old blue upholstered wing chair in the Blue Room of this Chestnut Hill mansion. The Blue Room is where the ghost known as Amelia haunts. She believes the chair belongs to her, and she doesn't like anyone sitting in it. Anyone who sits in the chair belonging to the ghost Amelia dies soon afterwards. A cold ectoplasm mist has been seen hanging in the doorway from the reception room into the Blue Room. Even though this place is a private residence, it has seen its fair share of guests, famous politicians, and of course, seances. So, listeners, what do you think? Do you believe in the haunted and cursed chairs? I know that Zach Baggins does, as he obtained the Devil's Rocking Chair last year for an exhibit in his museum. And that is the chair that is reportedly so haunted that he had to shut down the exhibit for quite some time because some of his guests were experiencing health issues. And I didn't think that really a chair could have that much power over killing somebody, but according to these stories, it does.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It makes me think because my grandfather on my mom's side had a chair that was and so did actually, I feel like everybody's grandparents had, their grandfather had that chair. But
yeah.
Both grandparents on either side, grandfathers both had a chair that, you did not sit in. It was their chair. They would give you, the stink eye if you were sitting in it for too long. Almost okay, your time's up. Get out of my chair. So.
Yeah. They were probably I worked long and hard today to sit in my favorite chair. You best get your ass up out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that pretty much wraps up today's episode, guys. So thank you so much for listening to it. We want to take this time to thank you from the bottom of our very ghostly hearts. And if you think that this show is pretty great, then please go rate and review us on your favorite podcasting platform. If you want, give us 5 stars, and that will really help us on the podcasting charts. Mm-hmm. And to also show your support, we all know that word of mouth advertising is the best kind. So tell a friend about us, get them to have a listen. And during this quarantine, we should all be trying out new things. So maybe your friend hasn't heard about us yet, or maybe your friend doesn't even know about podcasts. So you totally need to introduce them to that.
I mean, we are kind of cool, right? So I feel like everyone should just give it a shot.
I feel like we're a little biased, but that's okay.
True. Well, I mean, you guys could also follow us on social media, with Facebook, Booze and Bourbon the podcast, Instagram, Booze and Bourbon, Twitter, and YouTube.
Yes.
And if you're a super fan and want to show some support, you can head on over to see what's going on with our Patreon page, patreon.com/Booze and Bourbon. And today we would like to thank the Ghost Story guys. Aaron with an A, Justine Mays, Aaron Hamilton, Frank Marsh, Andy Greer, Rebecca Bolton, Stephanie McNew, Cindy Bussey, and of course the ABV Network.
Thank you guys so very much. We appreciate you to the moon and back and to the moon again. And we can all hang out and talk about these UFOs that President Trump is talking about right now.
Yes. And perhaps some household cleaners would help with
Stop
all of your ailments.
Oh my God, the memes that I've seen online are just ridiculous.
Maybe that's what helps with haunted chairs. You got to throw some bleach on it. Maybe get out some like Clorox or something. Just like give it a little dose of that and then you're all good to go.
Inject it on the inside and then also get UV light on the inside of it and it will kill everything.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Terrible. Anyways, guys, thank you again so much and stay tuned for an all new episode next Friday. Have a great week. Stay hydrated and stay spooky.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Booze and Bourbon is part of the ABV Network. For more information or to advertise on the show, please head over to abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.